Welcome to Kevin and Allison's NBA playoff podcast. We have a lot to talk about. We're going to be touching up on the top coaches left in the NBA playoffs. We're going to be talking about some of the key players and, of course, who we have winning the whole thing. Allison, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Kevin. How are you? Are you excited to talk about the 2011 NBA playoffs?
You know what, the NBA season has been amazing. LeBron, all the offseason hoopla that went on. I feel like a lot of new fans got into the NBA this year, and that's good for the game of basketball. Football is locked out right now. We have no idea when they're going to be back on the field, so there's been a lot of new fans for basketball. It's been a good year for the NBA.
Yeah, I agree. I've seen a lot of people talking more about the NBA this season as opposed to last season with the whole LeBron going to the Heat and then all kinds of other players coming out of the woodwork.
Carmelo going to the Knicks.
That was definitely a big
Amari going
change.
to the Knicks. It's good now that the NBA has teams in big markets like Boston, LA, New York, Miami. They're back. When New York was struggling, so was the NBA. You didn't see a lot of fans there. It's good to have these big market teams back.
I definitely agree. I think that all the teams in the big markets are definitely helping, even with the economy and just the way the players are reaching out to the cities. I think it's great.
The NBA is a different game than college, too. You're going to see scores in the hundreds every night. These guys practice all the time. They play 82 games a season as opposed to 30 in college basketball. So they're running up and down the floor a lot more. People say, "Oh, they don't play defense in the NBA. They don't try." They're traveling across the country. This is their job. It's tougher than a lot of people think.
I definitely agree. I think that it's a cop-out to say that they don't play defense because they definitely know the game better than anyone else, or else they wouldn't be where they are.
And there's more injuries in the NBA than people realize, too. Not too many teams affected this year. The Bulls were one team affected, and there's one surprise player coming from Chicago, Derrick Rose, looking like he's going to be the MVP. Led Chicago to the number one seed over Boston, over Miami with LeBron James and Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade.
Right.
He's a third-year player, this guy from Memphis. Stepped up. Joakim Noah was out. So was Carlos Boozer at times during the year. He's a guard who can score.
So do you think that Derrick Rose has a good shot of being the MVP?
Yeah, because the voting happens before the season ends, so
right.
it looks like that. He was averaging about 25 points per game, 8 assists. Not that good of a three-point shooter. He's a guy that gets to the rim really well for his size. Very strong in the air. A lot of coaches say they remind him of Allen Iverson back in the day.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I really think that he's definitely led the team. But I wonder if even though they have him as the MVP player, if the Bulls really have a chance in the championship. What do you think?
You know what? I don't have them in the championship simply because they don't have a lot of other good guards. Ronnie Brewer, C.J. Watson, those kind of guys, those aren't championship-level guys. They have Kyle Korver, a white sharpshooter that comes off the bench. I don't think that's enough. Luol Deng's a player from them from Duke. He's emerged. I just don't like their guard play. And if Derrick Rose has a cold night, they could be off. He had 35 points. They won by 3 the other night against the 8-seeded Pacers. You don't want your best player scoring 35. You want to kill a team when that happens. You don't really want to be struggling to win.
Exactly. But then again, on the other hand, in the West, we have the Lakers who they have Lamar Odom, who's actually shown a lot. And that's something that they really need, someone besides Kobe to come out. That's why I think they have a better chance of taking it to the championship level because they don't have that one player.
Now, you're a girl. From a girl's perspective, Lamar Odom, he's a superstar now with the Kardashians. Do you think that impacts him at all, that he's as a TV show now? Do you think he can focus solely on basketball? He seems to be playing better.
He does seem to be playing better. I wonder if it might just be because he's maybe happier and, he has a lot going for him. And Chloe is the heir on Law & Order Los Angeles tonight. They have, a lot going for them even with their show, so...
No, I don't watch that show at all. Can you tell me a little bit about it? Where aren't they in Miami or something?
I think so. The part that I watched, they had a lot of his basketball actually incorporated in the show because his dad came to one of Chloe's book signings and was talking to her about getting tickets to the games, and Lamar got kind of upset because, that's his place to choose if his dad wanted to come because he wasn't really in his life. But
yeah,
that's besides the point. But I really think that all of this emotions into Lamar's life has really shown on the court.
It has. He's having one of his best seasons. A little funny fact about him, he's addicted to candy. He literally pours Pixie Sticks down his throat at all times.
That's hilarious.
Always has candy. some doctors say that is not good for an athlete to do. Regardless, he was named 6th Man of the Year award. That awarded to the top player off the bench. He gives the Lakers that spark off the bench, but when you talk about LA, you have to talk about Kobe Bryant, a guy, surprisingly, he's only won 1 MVP in his career, but this guy has 5 championships. Michael Jordan has 6. You got to start talking about him as one of the best players of all time.
Right, people try to argue him with LeBron a lot, but I really think that people don't give him enough credit just because he's not as big as a show-off and they think he's really old and everything, but he still puts up the points.
LeBron, of course, more of a attack the rim, dunk, like Alison said, a show-off, little showboat, going to dance. He's going to fist pump every now and then, but he's more of a shooter. He's going to post you up. He's going to find the spot on the floor.
Definitely clutch.
Yeah, and he's clutch. He's going to hit the big shots at the end, something LeBron hasn't done. Other teams to look out for, Boston, of course, with the big 3 that trade in 2007. Kevin Garnett, Rajon Rondo has stepped up, Paul Pierce and Ray Allen. They are a little bit old. Shaquille O'Neal has been hurt most of the year. Not a lot of the ESPN NBA experts were picking Boston. They jumped off the bandwagon at the end of the year. They made a trade, and this happened mid-February. They traded their center, Kendrick Perkins, to the Oklahoma City Thunder for Jeff Green, and a lot of people didn't like losing their big man like that, so a lot of people chose the Heat. What do you think about Boston, Alison?
I think that they were kind of struggling a little bit in the playoffs. It was always, the games so far, it's been really tight, like within one shot to see who was going to win. And I thought that, I know being a girl, like I hear a lot of just the big names, and I don't really know all the statistics, but I know that there's a lot of stars on that team, and I figured that they would be doing them better, but they're still in it. So
they're playing New York right now. They lead 2-0 against the Knicks. 2 very, very tightly contested games. Carmelo Anthony last night scoring 42 points for the Knicks. They fall short in Boston. Always Boston's X Factor, big baby Glenn Davis off the bench, number 11. Sort of a goofy-looking player if you haven't seen him play. He can shoot the ball, though, and he can get to the rim. So
I kept hearing the commentators say big baby, and I thought that was hilarious how they...
Funny story about that. He hates that nickname.
Really?
He came out and said, please don't call me that. He wanted to be called Uno, sort of like Ocho Cinco. But Big Baby stuck. That nickname is from LSU, where he went to college. Of course, Shaq was called Enormous Baby or something there, so they call him Big Baby. Boston, a team to look out for. They're playing New York. That's going to Madison Square Garden on Friday on ESPN.
That should be a great game.
If the Knicks are able to steal a game, they're in a 2-1 series. All the pressure is going to be on Boston. That is going to come down to coaching, though. The next thing we're going to talk about, some of the top coaches in the NBA. Phil Jackson, you have to start with the Lakers, going for his 12th. I repeat, his 12th title this season.
That's just amazing.
Won 6 with Michael Jordan. He has 5 with Kobe. You can say he's been blessed with all the talent around him, but he uses his players off the bench so well. He knows which matchups to do. As a girl's perspective, could you recognize Phil Jackson, do you think, if you saw him?
Oh, yes. I've actually been to a Lakers game, and I know him just from, he's been on commercials, and I noticed him at the game, and just watching him coach at the game just showed how he really is a great coach. He keeps his cool. He gets fined a couple times I remember last Christmas during the game, he said something that was out of line, but every coach slips up once in a while.
No, but he is notorious for doing that.
Yes.
David Stern, the NBA commissioner, he'll attack him. He's attacked Dallas Mavericks owner Mark Cuban. He speaks his mind. Phil Jackson, a guy he's done it all. He's won a lot, so that's why LA is given the advantages a lot. Also, another guy not talked about a lot, Greg Popovich of the Spurs. He led them to the best record in the NBA this season. Tim Duncan, a player for the Spurs, they're struggling against the Memphis Grizzlies right now as a 1 seed. Do you know much about the Spurs? Do you think they have a good chance?
I don't really know much about the Spurs. Is that the team that they were talking about moving? Or is that the Kings?
That's the Kings,
okay,
Sacramento Kings.
Right. I don't really know a lot about the Spurs.
See, exactly. They don't have any superstars at all. When you think NBA, your average fan, you think LeBron, you think Kobe.
At least know one player.
Yeah, and someone on the team. For the Spurs, they have random guys. George Hill. Tony Parker is a guy that some girls would know, former wife or husband, former lover of Ava Longoria. That's her name.
Oh, right.
And George Hill, I already said, Dwan Blair. They're not going to go far. This is a league built on superstars. You look at the teams who win titles. Look at the teams that go to titles. They have Kobe. They have Dwight Howard. They have these guys that can take over a game. The Spurs don't have that.
What do you think the NBA could do to fix that? Like, it's kind of like all these teams are stacked, and then there's others that are, I know they've been trying to fix it and try to, with the free agent and everything. How do you think that'll change?
You know what? They might have to eliminate some teams. 22 out of the 30 teams, Alison, this year, they lost money. The NBA lost $300 million. That is not good. There is an impending lockout this season, just like the NFL, which would be horrible timing for basketball with all of its growth and its television ratings this year. But we could see a lockout. These owners are going to be like, I'm not opening my gym. I just lost $20 million this year.
Exactly.
Some of these players' contracts are ridiculous. Gilbert Arenas for the Magic, $111 million for 5 years. He averaged 8 points this season. He's not worth that kind of money. These guaranteed contracts, they might go out with the lockout.
They've got to go. So, do you think that for the NBA, in a long-term aspect, do you think that having less teams would be better? I personally think that if there were less teams, not have it so stacked like a Globetrotters kind of deal, but actually good teams but less of them, it might be more competitive. What do you think?
It would definitely be more competitive, but for me, a hardcore NBA fan, I would be devastated if my Washington Wizards went away. I'd be like, what do I do now? What do I root for the Lakers? Do I do that? The NBA is going to reshape its image. They're one of the few leagues that's really got in touch with Europe. I mean, you look on an NBA court, you're going to see Peja Stojakovic, you're going to see Dirk Nowitzki, you're going to see guys from all over the world. David Stern has made it clear, the commissioner of the NBA, he wants this league at some point, it may take 20 years, to go global, to have teams in Europe, to go, so like the Lakers and a bunch of teams would go to Europe for a month and play in tournaments. What the NBA is now, it's not going to look like this in 15 years. I guarantee that.
Right. So, what about some of the key players that you've seen in the playoffs in general? Do you think Kevin Durant, he really showed...
The Thunder are just really... They've blown away the Denver Nuggets, something I didn't expect. I thought that was going to be a series. And the interesting thing about Durant is he was supposed to be the MVP of this season. Derrick Rose of the Bulls stole it from him. But Durant, coming in this year, I mean, he was a scoring champion last year with 30 points per game, was close to around that this year. Never really had that signature game. Thunder struggled early out of the gates. In this playoffs, he has been incredible. Also, Chris Paul, the Hornets, they beat the Lakers in Game 1 in L.A. That's not a lot of teams have ever done that to Kobe Bryant. Chris Paul, going to be a free agent too. He's been battling knee injuries. He's a point guard, short guy, able to shoot the ball. His passing reminds me of Magic Johnson. He's that good. And another guy that I mentioned briefly was Dwight Howard with the Orlando Magic. Their series tied right now, 1-1 with the Atlanta Hawks. There's no one since Shaquille O'Neal who has looked like Dwight Howard with a basketball. Donkey, his shoulders, he almost looks like he's an alien. He doesn't look like he's human.
Oh, no. I love Dwight Howard. He is just so in shape. And just watching him play basketball, I think he's arguably definitely one of the most athletic people in professional sports. But not only, I think he's also one of the best NBA players because he's so versatile. And he's another one that gets in trouble with a lot of technicals that you wouldn't think because he's such a nice guy, but he gets so into the game, he gets a technical.
It's hard for referees to even gauge his strength and what is a foul with him. If he just touches someone, it looks like he's punched them because he is that strong out on the basketball court.
He's an animal.
The thing with him is he's a horrible free throw shooter, just as bad as Shaq once was with the Lakers. And you don't want your best offensive player to be a center normally in the NBA. You normally want that to be a guard or a forward, someone who can shoot threes. Magic 2 years ago, they made it all the way to an NBA Finals against the Lakers. They will not go there this year. It's about that time to make our picks. I'm going to go with the Lakers over the Heat in 7. I can't pick against Phil Jackson his last year. He said he's going to retire. And right now the Celtics, they're too old and banged up. Haven't been good since that Perkins trade. And I can't pick Chicago yet. Derrick Rose too young. Not a lot of help. So I'm going with the Heat out of the Eastern Conference. Allison, who do you have winning it all?